Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing fine. Today I would like to talk a little about codependency. When you hear the word codependency, it might come to mind that it is about two factors or two persons being dependent or reliant to each other, right? That is true. In psychology, codependency can occur in different forms and across different dynamics. Here I would like to focus on parent-child codependency, as I have been noticing that such a dynamic is very common in dysfunctional families and appear to exist and function as a deriving mechanism in different psychological conditions and malfunctioned and destructive relational dynamics between parents and their children. So it is about parents' attachment issues, which reflect themselves into their relational space between them with their child. Such problem may manifest itself in forms of over-controlling, enmeshment of emotions, lack of boundaries, manipulations, over-involvement, giving little or no space for the child for expressing himself and define his sense of privacy and boundaries. And all these toxic processes and manifestations are claimed by the parent and also perceived by the child as love, as being a normal sense of connectedness and closeness. But it's not true. So the child and later, an adult codependent person cannot see that this is not pure love. This is about a toxic trauma reliance which binds him to his or her parents in this, trap by using his emotions and moral values, and also by, invading and not responding to her or his needs, to not respecting his boundaries. One very toxic aspect of this situation is the parents' tendency to misuse control and very inappropriate methods of giving responsibility to the child, for example, for in order to maintaining harmony and peace in the family dynamics by, for example, forcing them to lie, to hiding truth, conveying messages, to the other parent or other family members, or to force the child to choose side or defend them against other people or the other parent, or simply, running coverage for their own poor, bad, or unfair behaviors and actions in certain situations. Or this is something that is usually addressed as emotional incest and manipulative emotional abuse. So this creates a toxic circle of clinginess and neediness and dependency in both sides, especially for the child, as they gradually develop sense of inability to make decisions by themselves, unfortunately, and to rely on their own meanings and feelings, and therefore their boundaries and sense of self-respect and inner values or self-worth get blurry and not accessible to them. Then there will be no clear roles or real expectations about who is parent and who is the child. The child may feel that he is only into this carousel of mess of exchanging roles and responsibilities between himself and a dysfunctional parent who really needs attention and care and support in order to protect himself, the parent, and also to protect him as a kid. So these children feel that they have to check out with their parents first to see if they have thought or they have decided well or in an appropriate way or not. So put it simply, we can say that codependency entails also a need to receive approval from parents and later on from other people in our future relationships in order to feel this inner void of self-worth. A lot of people with codependency complex issues may also find it very difficult to leave a destructive relationship because they are dependent and cannot imagine to their breaking up or living independently. So codependency may also result in other big adverse consequences such as passivity and indifference, as we may find it easier to be in waiting positions instead of taking actions and starting constructive processes for ourselves. Right, so healing gets very complicated for us. So all this stems from a non-accountable parent who fails to recognize that he or she is stuck in his destructive, dysfunctional trauma patterns. And this is not about love. This is destruction and fear. So here I share an example with you. I believe this example is very, concrete representation of codependency and in its, earliest stages of development. Several years ago, when I worked as a clinical child psychologist, I met a woman whose main problem was her 8-year-old daughter's neediness and dependent behaviors, as her daughter wanted to sleep with her. Otherwise, she could not rest and fall into sleep, and she had extreme fear for the dark. She could feel anxious and distressed by strangers and people who she didn't know very easily. In addition, she refused going to school because she was worried about her family, and she was afraid that something bad or catastrophic may happen to them, especially to her mother when she was not home, she was at school. So I thought that, okay, this is quite strange, right? What makes a little girl to feel this huge amount of fear and concern and anxiety? What is going on in the family which has created this, avoidance behaviors and anxiety for this little kid? Interestingly, the mother did not seem to see herself responsible for this and explained that she thinks that her daughter has got an anxious personality type, and she has always been like this, but in a recent time, especially after her brother, the kid's brother, was born, things with her got just worse. She said that they just don't understand why she has been behaving like this in a recent time. So at the first sight, it could seem that, okay, this girl has developed maybe some anxiety issues, perhaps because of something that happened in school, or perhaps there is something about some inherent vulnerability for anxiety in this family. But closer assessment and observation did show that there is something wrong with dynamics of this family, particularly this mom's way of raising and relating herself to her daughter. I talked also with the girl and ask her what exactly she is afraid of. And of course, as an unsafe kid, she had no concrete answer, but she said that she is worried about her mother's health, for example, and she is scared of monsters which can appear in her room suddenly. So then I asked her, okay, what she usually do when she is scared and who she really want to go to talk. And she answered that she goes to her mom, and that her mom allows her to do that and tells her that, okay, you should sleep with me for not getting scared anymore. It was shown that this child, became extremely dependent to her mother, because her mother was, actually emotionally manipulative to some extent, and invasive and dependent herself. And her daughter talked also about her tough emotional experiences, about bullying at the school, and also about her fear for the dark, nightmares, and all vulnerabilities to her mother. And her mother showed a lot of attention and affection to her, and not in a normal way. It was most probably felt for the child that her mother is just expecting and welcoming more and more vulnerable stuff from her. Then she could feel that, she receives a lot of attention and affection from her mom, because the opposite dynamics was apparently also true, as she was also receiving her mother's emotions all the time, right? So this little kid played a buffer, like a therapist. She had a therapist role most of the time. And in that, clinical interview, she told me that she knows that her mom had a tough time during her childhood, and also that her dad bothers mommy a lot, and these kind of tough things. So to me, it was just, hair racing to hear such a thing from a kid. And data from that interview made me more confident to assume that the codependency hypothesis is correct, and plays out in the mother-child dynamics. Even her drawings on a family picture gave me an indication of such a thing, as the father was drawn, by her as a very thin little figure on the background, but the mother figure was drawn, strongly and clearly on the front line. And interestingly, she could manage also, to put some tears on her mother's face. So to me, that little girl was a victim, really. And she was, a parentified child who was not seen and heard, and her feelings and boundaries did not have a space to be acknowledged, they were not respected at all. She was invaded emotionally. She was sent between her parents to tell them that, what the other parent thinks and feels during, for example, a discussion or argument, and sometimes she should, get criticized because of the other parent's bad behaviors, as if it was her fault, her responsibility that her parent could not take care of her own boundaries and feelings. So that was very sad, by receiving a lot of, attention from her mother when talking about her fear and experiences and worries. This kid was, actually paying off her part of that toxic deal, because she learned and observed that this is the thing that her mother does to her, and this must be about love. So this codependency, by which she and her mother's feelings and emotional experiences were, melted and absorbed into each other. These toxic dynamics of exchanging unpleasant emotions became kind of a strategy, a normal strategy for this little girl to get, more love and attention from her mother. So in other words, her unconscious mind created consistently more of these, concerns to bring her more and more close to her mother. Because as a little child, she had this, normal need of feeling loved and worthy. And she found then this strategy. And the way her mother, behaved and tackled this situation around her kid was for me, a clear example of having no boundaries in her role as a parent. So there was not much information about the father, in that little girl's and also the mother's talks and reports. So I got curious about her father role. When I asked, the kid why she does not want to get help from her father, why she doesn't talk about her father much, she answered that her mother said that it's not a good thing to do, and that her father does not like her to do that, but she can sleep with her mom instead. So you see how non-transparent and toxic and messy relational dynamics were ongoing in this family, which was actually affecting this kid psychologically and also emotionally. So finally, after several sessions with her mother, we made a treatment plan and ended up agreeing on that she should start therapy, and that she should realize that she is not, fostering healthy dynamic in their family, and this is just, destructive for her daughter. It was very hard actually for her to see and to recognize that she is the problem and not her anxious daughter, or even not her, her helpless husband either. So I tried to make her understand that this will make her daughter a dependent personality with unhealthy reaction patterns in the future, and there will be a big risk for her to becoming a people pleaser who has no sense of self-worth and self-efficacy. And in this process she could understand that this comes from her past, from her own childhood and dysfunctional dynamics in which she was raised. And also bringing the father into the change process was also a big part of that therapy project, because we needed also his help to facilitate mutual understanding and repair processes. So my main concern was to find a way to engage him more effectively in a process such that he gets back the power and the space and ability to respond to the relational, situations with her daughter, which he felt he was stolen from. So this turned out to be a very, much bigger project than expected, and the intervention had to occur at family level. Generally, I believe that the intervention unit in child psychology is always family and not the child. And I also believe that this is never about dependent child, but about dependent parent. So as you see, codependency will cause that we cannot feel connected to ourselves and our true selves, and it really can cause identity problems in the sense that you cannot know who you really are, which values and desires, wills and passions, which boundaries and cross lines you have. You will live for others and in accordance with others' premises and values. In many cases, it appears to be like, feeling like you cannot stand, seeing that other people's have got some problems or are in need for help. It's like, having a magnet to navigate other problems in order to solve, to be always present for other people but not for ourselves, to spend your mental energy and feelings for them excessively, because you cannot dedicate energy to go inward and see what is happening inside me, what is happening inside yourself, because it is a big empty room there which you want to avoid and escape from unconsciously. Or you will become a dependent person and try to control others and repeat exactly the same dynamics which you come from, without knowing that why you feel obligated to do so. You cannot considering not doing that, as I told you about the woman from therapy room. So all of this is about losing ourselves, about disconnection. So my experience says that educating and raising awareness and about such topics help people to step into the path of healing and change, because by this knowledge we can more easily identify if such patterns and toxic dynamics happen or ongoing in our families or not, or if we have been victims of such structure or not. Of course, this is not just about learning. You should also dare to feel intense suppressed emotions and define boundaries which you were never allowed to have, and regain your lost part of your life and your childhood. I hope that this has given you a little motivation to see more carefully into your family culture and dynamics. Please take care of your boundaries and your relationships yourself. I hope connecting with you again with another video. Thank you. Bye.